What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Barbells and Trails podcast. I'm your host, Brett, back with another episode, and here we are, the first ever criminal president, ex-president. How do we talk about this? This is a very interesting topic. I've barely kept up on it. I don't know a whole lot. I don't even know what's happened in the past 2 days, but apparently Trump might be getting criminal charges for possible fraud and money laundering, possibly, and a bunch of stuff. Very interesting. It's a lot of people are like, oh, good, he shouldn't be able to run, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It depends on what happens. I don't know. Will he be able to run? I have no clue at this point, especially if he does have charges against him. As for what happens over the next 2-3 weeks, it's very interesting. I have heard that because of this, it's basically been publicity for him, that he's been able to raise millions of dollars for his campaign because of all this, which is interesting to say the least. But this, I'm going to get right into it today. But the thing that this whole topic actually made me think about something was someone mentioned if prisoners can't vote, or criminals can't vote in prison, then criminals shouldn't be able to run for president. I was like, you know what? That's a fair point. And I've never thought about it, and I think it's just something that was out of my mind, kind of out of mind, out of sight kind of thing, just because I've never thought about it. But I was like, oh, shit. Prisoners can't vote, can they? And I know that sounds very stupid, the fact that I didn't realize that, but I guess it was just something I never thought about, or I was probably told at one point but forgot. And I was like, that's actually kind of wild. Like, I guess in certain cases I get it. There's definitely some people in prison I wouldn't necessarily want to be voting on things. I mean, their vote probably isn't necessarily going to have a large impact, but you could definitely see, even if they could, that someone running could possibly try swindling it, where they try getting the prisoner population of the country to vote for them. And sadly, that would actually probably make a bigger dent than people realize, because we have the world's largest prisoner population, which is kind of ridiculous. But it just made me realize, I was like, oh yeah, like prisoners have no rights, which I kind of hate, because I get it, and I do, especially for someone that committed a crime, and I think there should be justice for whatever it is they've done or caused. But it's just like, they are still people. Like, in the United States prison system in particular, they don't necessarily get treated that way, which is kind of sad. It's like, these are still United States citizens. These are still humans. Obviously, it also depends on where you are and what you did, and do certain people deserve probably cruel punishment? Yeah, that's fair. But in general, it's like the general population for most prisons is, when it comes to offenses, could definitely be a lot worse. And sometimes it's just like the unlucky dude that got caught for something kind of reasonably dumb. But it's like, there's a lot of people that do illegal shit that could end them in prison or jail, and they just don't get caught for it. And it's like, that's just one dude that, like, especially when it comes to like weed. That's one thing in particular, where it's like, how many people do we have in federal prisons that are in there because they had some weed on them? They weren't selling it, they weren't doing whatever, but because of that, it caused the whole thing, and now they're in jail for 12 years or some shit. And it's like, that's a little much, I feel like. And I think in general, it's like, the U.S. prison system just practically needs a reform. Like, it's so fucked up in how it's ran, and it's like they don't get treated well, and the longer they're in there, the better, because more money that goes to the state or the prison, or vice versa, because of the number of prisoners, and they spend the least amount of money per prisoner as possible, so that money gets pocketed elsewhere, and it's become an industry for money, which is sad to say, where it's like, if I'm ever going to end up in prison, let it be in like Finland, Sweden, one of those countries. If I'm going to do anything illegal, let me do it over there, because it's like, at least in those prisons, you're treated like a human. You get great meals every day. They actually try to, depending on what you did, to rehabilitate you and actually treat you like a person and give you freedoms and actually try to get you out. Like, that's their whole goal, is for you not to do it again. But it's like, here, it's like, no, we kind of want people to end up in here and come back and stuff. We got like quotas to fill. We want people in prison. It's like, that's fucked up. And it's just it's a whole mess that's stemmed from the past like 100 years, basically, where it's just gotten worse and worse. And it's kind of like a lot of stuff in the United States, I feel like, started off with good intentions, wasn't necessarily too bad, and then people learned to take advantage of it, like even the political system. I was listening to a podcast the other day. I can't remember this guy's name, but he came up with a very interesting thought experiment. I had never thought about this, but he's like, okay. He's like, politicians don't serve the people anymore. There's no... Well, I think the whole thing that got him on the topic was he was talking how you don't see the brightest individuals, the smartest people, the people that are heads of industry, the best of the best going into politics because there's no incentive to. And the people that actually end up in politics are people that choose to as a career, and they want to try making this a full career of being in it for 50 years. And like, that's their whole plan. They don't, there's not an incentive to get other people in it. Where back more in the day, it was more likely that you had captains of industry and people that had influence already coming in to serve a term, at least in office, and do something. They're public service. They're supposed to be public servants. And just went away from that. So he was like, I mean, it is crazy to imagine, but this was a hypothetical. And he's like, imagine if we had more term restrictions. You were in Congress or House of Representatives or whatever, but you were only allowed 4 years. That was it. 4 years max. So like, you would never have someone like Pelosi or Biden or someone that's been in there for 50. And you have 4 years, but you make $10 million or something. And it's like, wow, that seems absolutely outrageous. I kind of thought so too. He kind of broke it down a little bit. He's like, well, think about it. He's like, if you do that, you actually incentivize a bunch of people to actually want to do this. Like, most people that are super smart know how things work really well in industry and capitalism and just society, are like people that just have absolute brain power to figure out situations and problem solvings, are going into finances, business, entrepreneurship, like real estate, like all these big industries, because they know they can make money there quick. And it's like, yeah, I can make $2-3 million quickly, and I can do stuff, and I have a ridiculous salary, and I'm making $400,000 a year as a market analyst or something, like something along those lines, where it's like they have the ability to make a lot of money, and that's what drives them to do those jobs. And it's like, if you incentivize of like, hey, you can possibly get in here, make a ridiculous amount of money, you're going to start, like, even if it's obviously a short point in time, it's like, even those people that are really smart head of industries, like, let's just throw out like Ray Dalio, someone that has a lot of money already now, but it's like, you might have someone like Warren Buffett or something before they had the billions of dollars, that obviously was doing really well, that was like, you know what, I could just hop in here and try getting into office for 4 years, do some good, and make $10 million. Not that big a deal, and I can use that, and it can kickstart me to do other stuff. And I was like, that's very interesting. Or he's like, you can incentivize where it's like, okay, this is what we want to get done this year. Let's make a budget. Let's actually do the budget. Let's set everything aside. Let's focus on the specific issue or topic. And if we get this resolved and we figure this out, everybody gets a like $2 million bonus at the end of the year, kind of thing. Bonus, paycheck, however you want to put it. And he's like, you could incentivize people to cross party lines and actually work together, and it not be divided by your political ideology of Republican or Democrat. And things actually might move in politics. And it's like, well, that would actually be very interesting. But I was just like, that's a way different thought experiment, because it's like, yeah, like most people that are really smart and really driven and hardworking and are great at problem solving go into a small handful of industries because that's where the money is, and they end up being CEOs of companies and all these things. But it's like, if they wouldn't want to go into politics, because it's like, one, that's a lot, but two, it's like, okay, you end up there for however long and you make $100,000 a year, and it's like, for the average person, yeah, that's a lot of money. But it's like, for these people and the drive and what they want and their goals, it's like $100,000 a year is not enough for them to get out of their other careers and work towards something else for even one term. So it doesn't incentivize them to do so. And I was like, that's actually kind of interesting. I was like, oh, that would be, I think in general there needs to be some change in politics, and I feel like I will probably see it in my lifetime, because I feel like within the past few years, and COVID kind of helped push this along, that people have kind of seen how things are ran and how fucked up everything is, and people are getting tired of how some of the systems are ran and how things move, and are just tired of kind of the bullshit and want some change and know about the corruption even more. It's like, everybody kind of knew how things were running, but I feel like people are even more aware today than they were 20 years ago. And I think the internet has something to do with that for sure. And so it's interesting to see it, because it's like, I'm only 21. Like, where is politics going to be in 50 years? I don't feel like it'll be the exact same thing it is today. And then all the drama and bullshit. Like, I hope not. But it's just it was an interesting topic, and I was like, that's a cool thought experiment. I've never thought about it that way, but that'd be different. Like, they're definitely different from our system. But it's been wild. Okay, so I will tell you guys, this one's going out late too. Not as late as last time. Last month I did not mean to post on Saturday. If you did watch or listen, I do appreciate you guys. Shorts, I want to build up a catalog of stuff, and so I'm ahead, and I'm not struggling to try getting stuff out every day when it comes to shorts. I do want to eventually get to that point where I'm posting every day with it, but I want to try making them in bulk to make it easier. But since I was last on here, I finished that challenge. That challenge is over. No more push-ups, squats, and burpees. I'm actually really glad. I've had a few decent lifting exercises, workouts, and went to the gym, and I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, it's definitely nice that I haven't had to do that in a couple of days, but I could definitely see a difference by the end. Like, it's like a challenge like that for a month, you can see a difference, especially with the progression of it slowly adding up every day, more reps, more repetitions with everything. It went pretty well. I was like, not too shabby. It was just, it was getting a little rough there for a minute. I was like, oh, my legs, my quads. I think my quads by the end of it was hating it the most. They were just like, kill me, please. Between the burpees and the squats, it was a lot. Like, my legs were a little sore there for a few days. So I was like, having a little time off, they deserve it. But it is interesting. Not only that, things that are going on this week, I'm trying to think. NF's music is coming out. If you guys don't know who NF is, he is a rapper, Christian rapper, whatever. I don't like the term Christian rapper. He doesn't like the term Christian rapper, but he's an artist that I've listened to now for years. He's releasing an album this Friday, actually. And he hasn't released anything since, was it January 2021? So it's been a while. And his last album was 2019. So it's been a hot minute. I saw him in concert once. I'm definitely going to try seeing him again this year. I might have to do a road trip for it because he is not going to be in Indiana. But such a good performer and artist to see in person. I can't wait for some concerts this year. Like, I'm excited. I think Snoop Dogg's coming into town, and I'm like, man, I don't listen to a lot of Snoop Dogg, but like, it's Snoop Dogg. I want to see it. Like, I've never seen him. I want to see him. Like, he's not getting any younger. Like, he is 52 or something. Like, I want to see him perform before he stops performing or whatever. Like I don't want to necessarily see him when he's in his 70s, kind of like I don't know who's still Led Zeppelin. Do they still perform? I don't know, but like an old 80s rock band. It's like obviously he's not 20 or 35 anymore, but I still would love to see Snoop Dogg in concert. But I think he's coming. Wiz might be coming back this year. I'm excited. Like concerts are just such a good time, and they're a lot of fun. So I can't wait to necessarily get in there for that. But yeah, NF's songs, his new album releases Friday, and I'm super excited. He's released 2 singles. His stuff's just always really good. He's one of those artists that is good at invoking a story, and I feel like most artists can be good at invoking a story in this one album, where he's actually been able to craft a story across his entire music career with all of his albums, and basically in a way, in some form or another, tying all of them together as one big journey, and that journey being his life and how he's changed. And if you go and listen through his albums in order, you can see that change, and I kind of like it because it's like it's not only good music, but you can see and appreciate the creativity that was put in there that most artists, I feel like, don't worry about. Like I don't see Drake doing that with his music. He makes good songs, but I do not see him putting in that amount of technical creative effort. So it is. He's always been someone I've loved to listen to, and I've got to see him perform twice. One as an opener, one for his tour. So I can't wait to possibly see him again this year. But it's been a lot of fun. I'm trying to think what's going on. Easter's this Sunday, so if anybody's down to go hunt some Easter eggs, that will be the time, guys. But I'm trying to think. I'll be honest, I was a little ill prepared. Haven't finished it because this book is so long, and I'm just piecing it together a little bit every day. And it's the Why We Sleep book. I'm farther and farther into it. I still probably have like 4 hours to listen to, and I'm not listening to it at 1 time speed. I'm listening to it at 1.6 or something, somewhere in there. Yeah, it's like sleep. It's making me rethink a lot because it's like sleep is so important. Like I was literally listening, and one morning, one of the sections he was talking about in the book was basically listing all the negative aspects of getting less sleep. And it's like if you get less sleep, and they're showing like talking about control trials, but tests and studies, and it's like if you get less sleep, you're going to be more likely to be obese, you're going to be hungry, you're going to eat more food naturally because of the hormones that's released. Your testosterone is going to be messed up. You're not going to be as fertile. Your sperm's going to be disfigured or something. Like women are more likely to have miscarriages and all sorts of stuff. Like it was like that, and then like what else? Like risk of cancer is higher, and the development of cancer like goes up by 200%. So it grows and spreads faster. And I was like, what the fuck? But there was like, if you don't get enough sleep, you actually won't lose fat if you're in a deficit, or not as much, and your body will actually decide to break down your lean muscle mass. And it's like, whoa, wait, like if I'm working out and I'm in a deficit, you're telling me if I get less sleep, my muscles, the shit that's falling apart, not my, like the fat, the shit I want to get rid of, like all sorts of stuff. And it was like, the list just kept going on and on. I was like, wow, this is really making me want to pay attention to my sleep even more, because I was like, I don't want my testosterone fucked up to begin with. But like, I don't want to lose my muscle mass. I don't want to develop cancer. But he literally was talking about like how basically it's like if you have cancer and you're getting a lack of sleep, you're basically throwing gasoline on a fire. And I was like, shit. I was like, it's stuff you would just not necessarily think about. Like everybody's always said that, like, sleep's for recovery and restorative, but like I've never been told anything too specific on it. So it's just kind of like the more information that gets shoved into my head, the more I'm like, wow, this is wild. Like I can't wait to well, I don't know if I can't wait to finish the book. I do want to finish the book because it is a lot of information, but um it's just like I realize that I got to stay up on it more. Like, and he even talks about it in the book. He's like, sleep is almost probably more important to your health than diet and exercise. Like, he's like, there's 3 pillars of health. He's like, honestly, sleep's more of a base to build the foundation for your diet and exercise. And I'm like, well, it kind of makes sense now. But it's just like so much. I think even the risk of heart attacks or something goes higher. And that one they know based off of daylight savings time, where when people lose an hour of sleep, the risk of heart attack across the country, or not risk of heart attack, but the number of heart attacks across continents throughout all hospitals goes up by like, is it 30 or 40% the day before and after. And then also when we gain an hour on the other switch, the number of heart attacks that next day is like 30% lower. And I'm like, holy shit. And then just like the amount of, it talks about the NBA and the amount of people, or the likelihood of people to end up with major injuries as an athlete also can be predicted and projected by the amount of sleep they get. And it's like when you're an athlete like that and you're playing in the NBA or in the NFL, your body, like you as a person, is one of the most valuable things. So it's like if you get injured, that's like the worst thing that could ever happen. And because it could take you out, depending on, especially a sports injury, it could take you out for a season or multiple, or ruin your career depending on how severe it is. And so it's like risk of injury is nothing you want. And it's like one of the easiest ways to lower that is make sure you get 8 hours of sleep. And it's like, that's pretty wild. Like, it's just like, if you want to better anything about yourself, your health, the way you look, like anything, it's like, get more sleep. It's like, oh shit, okay. Like I've seen pictures, and you can really see it in one podcast that I posted. And one time I think I was using it for shorts, and this was an old podcast, probably 3-4 months ago. And I can't remember the situation, but I was dead set to make sure I got it out on Wednesday at 12. And I know, like, I've kind of let that slip a little bit since then, but I was dead set at the time. I was like, I gotta get this out. And so I was staying up, and I was reading or finishing something I needed to do. I was working on stuff on my computer. I was like, oh, I gotta get to sleep, but I still need to record. I was like, I'll record in the morning. So I slept for 4 hours, I think. Woke up at like 5 in the morning to record, and you can just see it, hear it. You can see how badly I'm functioning because of the amount of sleep I got. And like in the video, like I you can kind of tell I don't have necessarily bags under my eyes, but like my eyes, under my eyes, are definitely slightly discolored. I know the stuff I talked about in the podcast and the story I was trying to tell and stuff. My brain was not functioning properly. Like I'm literally sitting there trying to tell the story, and this story is probably taken 3 times as long as it should have been. And my brain is literally just not able to process. And when I was recording this, I had no idea. But then I'm sitting there and I'm editing it later and trying to make a clip, and I'm like, there's so much dead space here because my brain cannot function and process what I want to say or the story I'm trying to tell. Like I'm restating the same thing, or I'm missing something, or I'm just like literally waiting. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, man, sleep really does like throw you off heavily. And my brain was just not operational. I was like, that's actually kind of wild to look at, especially when it's yourself and you're sitting there, you're like, damn, that's what like a lack of sleep does. Like I look like shit too. Like you're just sitting there and you're like, man, dude, you don't look good. Like you look like you didn't get sleep, and it looks bad. And it's like, well, sleep really is really very important. Like, then I think one of the other risks you talked about was literally it sleep helps keep your, like, a lack of sleep will fuck up your DNA, and your DNA will not function properly. Your genetics, your genes will not function properly if you don't get enough sleep. And I was like, well, how the fuck? What? I would have never guessed something that in depth in the body system just would not work right because of less than 8 hours of sleep. And it's just really wild to think about. And there's just a lot of information, but it's a lot of fun. I'm just like, wow, like there's just so much between that and the Genius Life podcast and stuff. It's like there's so much information I'm taking in from some of the stuff, and it's like the human body is really fascinating, and we are still learning so much on a daily, yearly basis. Not daily necessarily, but a yearly basis. And it's just like, this is pretty crazy. Like, there's just a lot going on. But not only that, I was listening to someone talk. I was listening to David Chow. He was talking on a podcast, and he was talking about how I don't really know him. I apparently he's an artist, a very famous artist, and has made a shit ton of money. But he was talking about how just some of the things he's done and how he's trying to reconnect with nature a little bit and like all this stuff. And how at one point he did an art exhibit basically to express yourself and let your emotions out. And using the things he's learned at mental institutions or addiction facilities, because he's had addictions to different things in the past, and he has a shit ton of money, like millions and millions and millions of dollars. And so he's been to places where it's like this month retreat and it costs $100,000 to go there or something. And he was talking about how like one of the things that he learned there was that apparently there's only really two animals that carry trauma in their body, like with them almost physically. And he said it was domesticated dogs and humans. And he was talking about how like if you watch the animal kingdom and let's say an antelope was in Africa and a lion was after it, and it had a near-death experience, and the lion reached out and scratched its ass and it ran off, but it made it. And it's like if you watch that same antelope for a few minutes, it's like eventually the antelope will literally be shaking its butt, kind of shaking it off, like physically. And then basically within minutes go about its day like nothing ever happened. Where for a human being, that is not how we work. If you have a near-death experience, if you had a lion that about got you, you would live with that for a long time. You might even develop PTSD or have nightmares depending on your near-death experiences and what that could have been like. And he mentioned that one of the things he learned about in these like therapy courses and at these retreats was to stress expression or something along those lines. Basically letting out your stress by yelling, screaming at the top of your lungs, smashing shit, something like literally physically letting out that pent up emotion and energy. And I was like, is this how like those rec rooms like became a thing? Was this why? Because it's like you see some of those videos and some people are like, ha 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 ha, I'm smashing plates, this is so much fun. And then you see other people where it's like, oh, they're actually taking something out on this TV that they're smashing with a baseball bat. Like there's some people that go there for a purpose. And then there's other people that go there like, oh, this is so cool, I get to smash plates, this is like yay. But what he was talking about was interesting because he talked about how he did basically a full day exhibit for free. I don't know when this was, but he said there's a lot of stuff, and one of the things that he had was a live artist, because this was art. Basically a person in a full body police suit, fully suited up, and they used him for people to take out their aggression and emotions on him. They would give them a baseball bat and they would literally beat this person. The guy was fine, apparently. There was only like one time that he really got hurt, but he was all right. where people would literally hit him with a baseball bat at one point, like kick him, punch him, shove him, all this shit, just to like basically release any stress, anger, anxiety on him. And I was like, that's wild. How much did you pay that guy? And how many waivers did people have to sign? But then at the same time, it's like, you know what? That kind of makes sense. Like, think about punk music, like punk rock. It's like in screamo, like it's like, oh, that kind of makes sense why people kind of like it. It's like you're kind of letting out your emotions in a very, very vocal, loud way, forceful. And it's like, he's like, how many humans like actually have ever just yelled at the fucking top of their lungs? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know if I actually ever have, or I might have, and it's been close. Actually, I might have, but not everybody. And he's like, I think nowadays, sadly, the school system and certain things have basically created people to be emotionless robots that are here to work. And I'm like, you know what? I've never thought about it that way, but it kind of makes sense, especially in the United States. Maybe not in other countries, but in the United States, I could agree with that statement. It's, you're not taught to deal with your emotions in America. Like, it's not a thing. Like, yeah, you learn math, you learn your English and your history or whatever, but you don't actually get to learn how to be a person. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you just got to figure it out on your own. And then we wonder why teenagers have so many issues. And the United States has a shooting issue. It's like, because our mental health system here sucks ass and we don't do anything about it. It's like mental health is the cause for 95% of all this. But they don't do enough to allow anything to change. It's like, yeah, mental health is a big, big, big deal. And I've dealt with it. I think everybody's dealt with it in some form or another, some worse than others. Like, everything's on a spectrum. Nothing's black and white. And it doesn't matter what it is, whatever topic. And it's just like, things just get kind of boiled over and not necessarily worried about, but until it becomes an issue and they're like, oh, this sucks. But then they blame other shit and they don't want to actually attack the problem. And I don't necessarily know what or how you would fix it just off the top of my head, but something more should be done for sure. And it's just, I wish there was something different, like some change. People have the ability, but people don't express themselves as much as they should have. We definitely in the United States keep a lot pent up, and I can agree to that for sure. And it doesn't matter what emotion it is, but it definitely gets pent up and shoved away. And I'm not saying it's not bad to kind of be stoic and not necessarily show your emotions all the time, but I've never been taught to necessarily deal with my emotions that well. And so it makes sense. It makes sense why we have issues with young men in particular, where it's like, it's hard to really figure out this world today. It's like, there's not, depending on where you are and who raised you, you're not necessarily always shown the ropes in a way that I feel like is a little more necessary. It kind of sucks because it kind of leaves you out there on your own. And I think resilience and figuring stuff out on your own is important, but I think it definitely helps if you're at least pointed down the right path. I think, and it sometimes it definitely depends on the person, but it's just, resilience is important in general, and there's just a lot that needs to change with mental health in America and the way we talk about it and deal with it. And it could be policy issues, it could be big pharma issues, it could be legalizing psychedelics or weed or whatever. Like, there's so many different ways you could go about it, but just in general, there needs to be more done, I think. And I feel like politicians let it slip, and then it becomes other issues, and it builds, and we wonder why we have the problems we do. But it is what it is. I mean, there's not much you can do. I think as long as you can try to better yourself in some form, you're gonna better the collective. If you go out and you work out and you better your day and you have a positive attitude and you're kind and caring, just by one person doing that, you're going to have an impact on multiple people that day, especially if you live in a city. And it's like your happiness and positivity will impact those people positively. It won't necessarily change their day. It might change someone's, make them feel a little different. But it's like just putting that out there, that positive energy, it has an impact on someone, and it's like if that could make someone else's day a little better, it's worth it, I think. And that's why I try to bring a positive attitude into most things, and as much as possible, and especially around people. But you can only do so much, and we all got to grow in some way or another and get better at living life like we do. But I'll be honest, I did not necessarily have a whole lot to talk about today, but I think I actually like the stuff I talked about. I can't wait for next week. I got a few ideas, and we're only a few weeks out from the year of the podcast. I mean, this is number 50. So, congratulations to us. We've hit 50. We've almost hit the year mark. So I can't wait to do that. And it's kind of hard to believe it's been a year. But thank you all for listening this week. And I hope you guys have an amazing week. Bring positivity into the world. Go hit the gym. Work out. Get some sleep. Sleep's important. And get some sleep before I see you guys all again. And I'll see you all next week. Peace out, everybody.